Alright, hello there, thrill seekers. That was called Good Times, Bad Times, and it was a dumb experiment that I spent way too much time working on. And I finally just gave up. I think that last take was about as good as it was going to get. So what happened is I was going to play the bass riff from Good Times, aka Rapper's Delight. And then when I was looking for a drum track to pair it with, I was looking on YouTube for Good Times isolated drums. And what I came up with was Good Times, Bad Times, the Led Zeppelin song, isolated drums. And so I decided to see what it would sound like if I played Good Times, the Chic song, over top of Good Times, Bad Times. And what you found out is it doesn't sound very good. So there you go. Maybe it should be called Bad Times, Bad Times. Anyway, before I get started with today's topic, I want to ask for the assistance of any audio engineers out there, and I'm sorry, I'm looking for something here. So as some of you know, I've been working on the audiobook for my new book called The Other Side of Nothing, and I finished it, and it took a long time to record because it's a long book. So I submitted it to audible.com, and I got a rejection letter that I'm going to read partially to you as follows. La-di-da. We have found an issue that must be corrected before we are able to process your audiobook for retail sale. Below we have listed the requirements not met and our recommended solutions. When making revisions, always be sure to revise the original WAV files within your preferred editing software. Blah-di-da. Okay, here's what it says. The files submitted for this title contain excessive background/ambient noise and do not meet our noise floor requirement. Please revise all files. Requirement: a maximum of minus 60 dB noise floor. And then they give a bunch of techno stuff in the solutions. And you can see what they've set up on the screen, so any of you who want to read that can read it. So here's the deal. I listened to those audio files, and there's as much of a noise floor, which is sort of ambient background noise in the background of the whole thing, as there has been on any of my audiobooks. I record all my audiobooks on GarageBand in my apartment, and I've had various apartments over the years. But this is, in fact, I recorded the last one, Letters to a Dead Friend About Zen, on the road. As some of you who bought the audiobook may know, and some of you who don't know can go buy the audiobook to hear the thrilling what happens when you do that. I decided, since it's letters from these various European cities, I was going to actually, I'm going to be on tour, and I was going to read the letters in either the city that I wrote them from or the closest city I was going to on that tour. And I did that, so there was all kinds of little hisses and hums and things, and they didn't reject that one. So anybody who's an audio engineer out there who wants to look at the files and see if they can fix them, I would really appreciate that. bw@hardcorezen.info is where to write to, and just tell me how to get the files to you, and then you can listen to them and see if you can reduce the noise floor on them. Or else I have to record them again, in which case I don't think they're going to be any better because it's the same setup now as I had when I recorded them. I mean, it's a different location, but it's the same recording it in a room with a little microphone with a sock on it. So today's episode is inspired by a comment on a video that I made, and I did not remember that I said this, but in that video I must have said something that my teacher had told me, which is consciousness is just an idea. And I remember when he told me that, it had a huge impact on me, and it really kind of spun my head around. Because I trusted him, and I knew he wasn't BSing me when he said that, but I couldn't understand what this phrase meant. And somebody asked about that and said, how can consciousness just be an idea? Consciousness is everywhere. It's the underlying stratum of everything that happens, and et cetera, et cetera. I don't remember exactly what he said, which were my feelings too. Like, how can consciousness be just an idea? Consciousness seems to be everything. And I thought, well, maybe I'll do a video about that. But in the meantime, well, I don't know if there's a but I've been reading this book that I've mentioned. It's called Gleanings from Nisargadatta. It's you have to order it directly from the guy Mark West who wrote it, who lives in Australia now, who spent some time in India in the 70s with Nisargadatta Maharaj, the Indian Pund. I don't know what you call him. He didn't call himself a guru. He just was a guy who sat around in his apartment in Mumbai and talked to people about stuff. But what he said was, I think, particularly brilliant. A brilliant guy. And I've only recently discovered him. So this is a kind of a hard-to-find book. Anyway, just so happens the chapter that I chose to read last night before going to bed contains the very line that my teacher said to me, which is consciousness is just an idea. And since it's a short chapter and it's all Nisargadatta, I thought I would just read it to you. So here we go. It's just titled 1977, April 9th. And it goes, "At first you thought that your experiences were coming from the world, but now you are convinced that the experience of the world comes from you." It's a question mark at the end of that sentence. "You get the experience of the world through you. So if you understand this, then there is no choice to it. The experience of the world comes and goes. So what profit or loss is there in this? What do you want to attain in this world? The experience of the world comes through the consciousness of I am. In the dream state, you have the illusion of being awake." And here's a parenthetical interjection, and I don't know if this is Nisargadatta or the author of the book. "You feel that the dream is real while you are dreaming. The consciousness of I am is operating." Okay, so that's the parenthetical, and then we're back to Nisargadatta. "But what is illusory in this? The consciousness itself is illusion. That we are sitting here discussing and talking at all, that itself is illusory. So that you are sitting there watching this video, that itself is illusory." That's what he's saying. "That we are acting and talking here is only because of our consciousness of I am. This consciousness of I am is illusory and completely unreal to the jnani." Jnani is the kind of yogi that he was, Nisargadatta was, a yogi of knowledge, I guess. "Ultimately, until you can leave off completely the feeling of personality, you will not be able to fully comprehend the absolute reality. You are bound by this sense of being a person, even though this thread of a personality may be very thin. However, even then this bondage of personality is ultimately illusory." Ziggy. Let me read the stuff to the people. "You are deluded into thinking that in the normal waking state that you are awake. In truth, you are fast asleep. And until you awake completely into the reality, full comprehension of the reality will not dawn on you. Even consciousness itself is only an idea." So I was just like, oh, that's just what I was thinking of talking about. "The moment that you have awakened from the sleep of ignorance or the dream of this world, at that moment you are immediately complete. All I am doing here is waking you up, calling, 'Wake up, you have been dreaming.' That you are awake and are a person in a world when you have any sense of personality like this, you are quite obviously fast asleep and dreaming, although you falsely feel that you are awake. True awakening is to awaken to reality and to know that you are not a person and never have been a person. A person has needs and desires, but the reality needs nothing at all, for this is your true state. This I am consciousness is great, for it creates this vast world, but you are greater, for you are the reality behind and beyond this I am consciousness. You have come to me to ask me something, and I have told you that you are the reality. So remember this, stick to this, and live by this knowledge. You are the reality. You are the Parabrahman. So meditate on this and remember this, and finally the idea that I am Parabrahman will also leave you. It is not because I tell you that you are the reality. Even if I don't tell you, still you are the reality. It is there with you at all times, a self-evident fact. Whatever powers or siddhis, those are powers that yogis supposedly get, come to you from this knowledge, don't become involved with them. Negate them immediately and remain merged in your true nature. Do whatever you want in this world, but don't lose your identity. That is that you have no identity at all. Your identity is no identity. So with this knowledge, when I die, what happens? What I never really had goes away, and what was never mine leaves me. So what have I lost? What really happens to me with the physical death? Nothing at all. Do anything you want in this world, but be with yourself, your true nature. Don't forget it. Be with it. Dwell with it. It is bliss itself. It is not the nature of bliss. So I'm spending a lot of time in this video channel talking about Nisargadatta Maharaj because I find him a fascinating fellow, and I don't want to make this a Nisargadatta Maharaj channel, although I probably could. And I don't know his tradition, and I'm not directly connected with the tradition. What's interesting to me is how much it is similar. Ziggy. What's interesting to me... Hi, Ziggy. Ziggy, what are you barking at? What are you barking at? What's interesting to me is how much his tradition... Well, not his tradition, what he says... Even though the tradition is different, Ziggy, even though the tradition is different, what he says really kind of works well with the tradition that I studied. For example, I mentioned he said the same thing that my teacher said, that even consciousness is just an idea. And he says something in here that Joshu Sasaki Roshi said, which was, you are not a person. There is a commentary that Joshu Sasaki Roshi made about the fox koan, the Hyakujo's fox, in which he says, there's a line in there where the fox person says, if you know the koan, you'll know what I'm talking about. If you don't, you'll just be confused. But anyway, he says something like, I am not a person, and Joshu Sasaki Roshi stops right there and says, oh yeah, that's really important. If you understand that, then you get the whole koan. So that's the same thing that Nisargadatta Maharaj says in this little snippet. And I find that fascinating. That idea of consciousness being just an idea, there are different ways to understand that. One way is that whatever you think of as consciousness is different from consciousness itself. So whatever that something is, that inmo, what the unexpressible is, I don't know what he's barking. I think he's barking at another dog that's barking back at him over there. Anyway, whatever that unexpressible something is, it's not encompassed by this word consciousness. And that's why Dogen uses that word inmo, because inmo is just a vague word meaning it or something. And they translate it sometimes in English as suchness. But I don't like that translation because it sort of makes it too special. It's more like what my teacher translated it as is it. He said it's like the word it. And making it the word suchness just gives it this special quality that I think draws you away from the fact that he's just saying this inexpressible something. So whatever this inexpressible something is, then the word consciousness is not encompassing it, can't hold it. But there's another way, and I found that other way of interpreting it from this book, and that's that consciousness is an idea that this inexpressible something has about itself. It has this idea that I am. But that idea I am might be wrong, because the idea I am sets up a contrast. It sets up a contrast between the ineffable something and other things. But there are no other things. Everything is just the ineffable something. And there's this nice quote by Shunryu Suzuki Roshi, founder of the San Francisco Zen Center, where he says, something exists, and then laughs, but no particular thing exists. Everything is just a name of one unknown being. And Ziggy right here is saying the name of the one unknown being, isn't he? Hi, Ziggy. Anyway, that's it. That's what I got to say for you now. Consciousness is just an idea. Sorry about the bad musical intro. I'll try to do a better one tomorrow. And we will see you next time. Oh, wait. I got to tell you that if you want to donate to me continuing to do this, you can go to the URL you're seeing below, which is hardcorezen.info/donate. That is hardcorezen.info/donate. There you will find links to my PayPal and Patreon accounts. Those are my main and usually only ways of making a living. So I appreciate your support. But as always, this is offered for free, so you don't got to support me if you don't want to support me. And we will see you next time. Have a good time all the time. Bye. Say bye, Ziggy. Oh. Say bye, Ziggy. All right, we'll see you. Ziggy. What do you think? Woof. Really? That's what you think about consciousness just being an idea? Is Ziggy just an idea? In the depth of consciousness? Oh, he's got scuzz on his back and he's trying to get it. Well, good luck, Ziggy.